The ruthless Mafia boss, Chung Castellano, froze as the unmistakable sound of Venetian Italian cut through the room. It was his mother's forbidden native tongue, but hearing it spoken with such rhythmic perfection by the woman he least expected triggered an obsession he couldn't control. It was a sound that felt like silk rubbing against a raw wound. He looked up from his menu to find their waitress, a young woman with warm brown eyes and a nervous, flickering smile, conversing with his mother as if they were old friends meeting by chance in a crowded Italian piazza. In this neighborhood, no one ever spoke Italian to his mother. Not here. Not in the jagged, overlapping edges of New York's Chinatown, where the Castellano name carried a heavy weight for entirely different reasons. Here, names were currency, and history was a shadow that followed you down every narrow alleyway. Before we dive deeper into this story, click the subscribe button and tell us where you are watching from in the comment section. If this story moves you, share it with someone who loves a good tale. Do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story. The restaurant was called La Nana's Kitchen, a modest establishment tucked into a forgotten corner of Little Italy where tourists rarely wandered this far north of the main drag. It was the kind of place that served honest, unpretentious Italian food, the kind of soul-warming fare that lacked the Americanized overkill of excessive garlic and endless breadsticks. Chung brought his mother here every Sunday evening without fail. It was their sacred tradition, an unbreakable ritual started when his father had passed away 8 years ago. He remembered how his mother had looked at him then, her eyes hollow and drained of light, confessing that she couldn't remember the last time someone had truly taken the time to treat her to a proper meal. From that moment on, Chung had made it his life's mission to ensure she never felt that particular brand of loneliness again. Tonight, Amelia Castellano sat across from him in a cream-colored dress she'd owned for 2 decades, her silver-streaked dark hair twisted into the same elegant, tight bun she'd worn since he was a small child. She was beautiful in that timeless, weathered way some Italian women possessed, all expressive, dancing hands and eyes that could communicate entire volumes of conversation without uttering a single word. She was meticulously studying the menu even though she always ordered the exact same dish, and Chung was just about to tease her about her predictable nature when their waitress appeared. "Buonasera," the young woman said, her voice soft but surprisingly clear amidst the clatter of silverware. Chung's head snapped up. His mother's menu lowered with a slow, deliberate grace, her eyes wide with a look that bordered on pure disbelief. The waitress stood beside their table with a notepad clutched in her hand, looking professional yet visibly nervous under the weight of the Castellano gaze. She was petite, perhaps 5'4" in the sensible scuffed flats she wore for long shifts, with chestnut-colored hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. Her eyes held a mixture of warmth and intelligence. She wore the standard uniform, black pants, a white button-down shirt and a black apron. But when she spoke Italian, her entire face underwent a transformation, becoming animated, vibrant, and suddenly alive. "Tu parli Italiano?" Amelia breathed, the English language falling away instantly. "Si, signora," the waitress replied, her smile becoming more genuine. "My grandmother is from Venice. I grew up speaking it at home. It was the language of our kitchen." "Venice?" Amelia's hands flew to her chest, her fingers fluttering against the cream fabric. "I have family in Venice. The city is beautiful, no? It is the most beautiful place in the world." "The most beautiful," the waitress agreed, her eyes shining. "I dream of working there someday. I'm currently studying to be a chef, and Italian cuisine is my absolute passion. Not just the food but the history behind it." Chung watched this exchange with a feeling he couldn't quite articulate. His mother was leaning forward now, her entire body language shifting from the reserved posture of a widow to the engaged stance of a young woman. She looked invigorated. He realized with a pang of guilt that he hadn't seen her look this radiant in years. "A chef." Amelia clapped her hands together with delight. "This is a wonderful thing. What is it that you study specifically?" "Everything but traditional regional Italian is my favorite," the waitress said, her enthusiasm becoming infectious. "The dishes passed down through families, the ones that aren't written in books. That's what I want to preserve. I want to make sure those flavors don't disappear." "Brava, brava." Amelia was beaming now. "You know, my nana in Venice, she made the most incredible risotto. I try to replicate it here in my own kitchen but something is always missing. It never tastes like the canal air and the old stones." "The rice," the waitress suggested gently, leaning in. "Or perhaps the specific clarity of the broth. Venetian risotto requires a very specific type of Vile 1 nano rice, and the seafood broth must be delicate, almost transparent. It's incredibly hard to replicate without the exact mineral content of the water and the right ingredients." Amelia stared at her mesmerized. Yes, exactly this. How could you know such a thing? I wrote my thesis on the regionality of Venetian cuisine, the waitress admitted, looking slightly embarrassed by her own academic zeal. I might have become a little obsessed with perfecting the specific risotto techniques of the Veneto region. Chung's mother laughed, a real melodic laugh, and the sound vibrated in Chung's chest. It wasn't the polite, measured chuckle she gave at his anecdotes. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. What is your name, Cara? Amelia asked. Rossi. Rossi Martinez. Rossi. Amelia repeated the name with obvious pleasure. A beautiful name. I am Amelia and this is my son, Chung. The waitress finally turned her gaze to him, and Chung saw the exact microsecond she recognized who he was. Her eyes widened, her pupils dilating slightly, and she took a small, instinctive step back. A flicker of genuine fear crossed her features before it was quickly suppressed behind a mask of professional courtesy. In this neighborhood, the Castellano name was synonymous with power and the complex underworld of the docks. The duality of his life, his Italian heritage on his mother's side and the fierce, disciplined Korean legacy of his father, had made Chung a formidable figure. He was a man who bridged two worlds, respected and feared in both. Mr. Castellano, she said, her voice careful and measured as the Italian disappeared into slightly accented English. It's a pleasure to meet you. Chung, he corrected, keeping his tone as gentle as possible to put her at ease. He was accustomed to this reaction, the sudden chill that entered a room when people realized his identity, but seeing it from her bothered him more than he cared to admit. Just Chung. And thank you for making my mother smile like that. It's a gift I haven't been able to give her in a long time. Something in Rossi's guarded expression softened. Your mother is lovely. It's truly my pleasure to speak with her. Do you work here often? Amelia asked, stubbornly switching back to Italian to keep the connection alive. 3 months now, Rossi replied. I work evenings and weekends while I'm finishing culinary school. It helps me understand the rhythm of a kitchen, and the chef here is kind enough to let me observe the line during the rush. A smart girl. Amelia nodded. And your Italian is perfetto. Your grandmother taught you with a golden tongue. She insisted on it. She said I needed to know where half of my soul came from. Rossi smiled. My father is Dominican, so Spanish was the language of the streets. But at home with Nana it was always Italian. Chung committed every detail to memory. Mixed heritage, which explained the striking, unique beauty of her features. A deep connection to her elders. Ambition. A genuine passion for her craft. She was young, likely in her mid-20s, which made him acutely aware of the gap between them. He shouldn't be noticing the way her hands moved when she described the rice, or the way her ponytail swayed when she turned. We should order, he said, perhaps more abruptly than he intended, trying to snap himself out of his thoughts. Before the kitchen gets backed up. Rossi's professional mask was fully restored. Of course. What can I get for you tonight? Amelia ordered her usual ossobuco, but only after engaging Rossi in a 5-minute debate about the merits of 3 other dishes. Chung ordered a simple pasta dish without really looking at the menu, his mind preoccupied. When Rossi left, his mother turned to him, her eyes shining. Chung, she said quietly in Italian. That girl. She spoke to me like I'm a person. Not a relic. Not an old woman to be tolerated. A person with a history. Mama, you are a person, he replied, though he knew what she meant. You don't understand. Amelia's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her water glass. I have lived in this country for 30 years. And for 30 years, I have felt the language of my heart drying up. The ladies from the old parish are gone. I am surrounded by a world that doesn't want to hear the music of my home. That girl, she gave me back my voice for a moment. Chung felt a sharp pang of realization. I speak Italian with you, Mama. You do and I treasure you for it. But you learned it here. It is a beautiful imitation. That girl speaks with the rhythm of the canals. She speaks like my mother spoke. It's the difference between a photograph and the real thing. She wiped a stray tear from her eye. It's not a small thing to me. Chung took her hand across the table. I know, Mama. I'm sorry I didn't see it before. Don't be sorry. You give me a beautiful life. But tonight, that girl gave me a piece of my youth. Chung looked across the restaurant. Rossi was at the kitchen past talking to the head chef. She was gesturing with her hands, her face lit with focus, and the grizzled old chef was actually nodding in agreement. She's special, Chung murmured. See, Amelia replied, her eyes knowing. Very special. Rossi returned later with a basket of warm focaccia. The chef made this today with rosemary from his own garden, she explained. I thought you might enjoy it, Signora Amelia. You remembered my name, Amelia said, touched. And, Rossi added, I asked the chef if I could bring you a small tasting of his risotto alla pescatora. He makes it in the true Venetian style. I wanted you to see if we got the broth right. She placed a small, perfectly plated portion in front of Amelia. It was a gesture of pure kindness. Amelia took a bite, closed her eyes and whispered, perfetto. As they left that night, Chung watched Rossi from the doorway. He knew he would be back. The following Sunday, Chung arrived at the restaurant alone. He told his mother he had business to attend to, but instead, he found himself seated in Rossi's section at 7 o'clock sharp. When she saw him, a flash of surprise crossed her face, followed by a flush of color. Mr. Castellano? I mean Chung, she said, looking flustered. Is your mother all right? She's fine. A church function. But I found myself craving the food. He looked at the empty chair across from him. And the conversation. Rossi hesitated, then pulled out her notepad. Can I get you a drink? Whatever you recommend. You're the expert. She suggested a Valpolicella, explaining how the acidity would cut through the richness of the evening specials. As she spoke, Chung asked her more about her dreams. He learned about her plan to do a stage in Italy, a grueling, unpaid apprenticeship at a top-tier restaurant. She was saving every penny from 3 different jobs to make it happen. It's competitive, she said, her voice dropping. And expensive. But it's the only way to truly learn the soul of the food. Chung looked at her and saw a mirror of his own younger self, the drive, the hunger to prove one's worth. You'll get there, he said firmly. I have a feeling you don't let much stand in your way. Over the next month, Chung became a regular. He came on Tuesdays and Thursdays alone, and Sundays with his mother. He learned that Rossi lived in a small apartment in Washington Heights, that she supported her younger siblings, and that she spent her rare days off studying old Italian cookbooks in the public library. One evening, his associate Marco pulled him aside at the office. Boss, you're spending a lot of time at that Little Italy spot. People are starting to talk. They think you've gone soft on a waitress. Let them talk, Chung replied, his voice cold. She's a friend of the family. Is she? Marco asked. Because if she's more than that, she needs protection. Your world isn't kind to people like her. The words haunted Chung. He knew the dangers of his life. He knew that bringing Rossi into his orbit was a risk to her safety and her dreams. But the thought of not seeing her, of not hearing her talk about the perfect sear on a scallop or the history of a sauce, felt like a different kind of death. He decided to take a chance. He invited her to cook for his mother's upcoming birthday dinner at his home. It was a professional offer, he told himself, but it was also a way to see her outside the confines of the restaurant. When Rossi arrived at his Brooklyn Heights brownstone for the planning session, she was overwhelmed by the professional-grade kitchen. This is a dream, she whispered, touching the marble countertops. Use it, Chung said. Practice here. Prepare the meal here. I want you to have everything you need to succeed. As they worked on the menu with Amelia, the atmosphere shifted. The professional distance began to melt away. Amelia watched them with a silent, satisfied smile, seeing the way Chung's eyes followed Rossi and the way Rossi's shyness was slowly being replaced by a quiet confidence in his presence. You like her, Amelia said to him later after Rossi had left. She's talented, Mama. She is more than talented. She is the bridge you've been looking for. She understands the world you come from and the world you want to be in. Amelia took his hand. Don't let your fear of the shadow keep you from the light, Chung. Your father would have wanted you to be happy, not just powerful. The night of the birthday dinner was a triumph. Rossi worked in the kitchen like a conductor, producing a 7-course Venetian feast that left the guests speechless. But it was the moment after the dinner, when the guests had left and they were alone in the kitchen, that changed everything. Rossi was cleaning up, her face flushed from the heat of the stove. I think she liked it, she said, looking at the empty plates. She loved it. You gave her a piece of herself back tonight. Chung stepped closer. Rossi, I know who I am in this city. I know what people say about me. But when I'm with you, I feel like the man my mother sees. Not the man the streets see. Rossi looked up at him, her eyes searching for him. I was scared of you at first. The name, it carries a lot of ghosts. But then I saw how you treated your mother. I saw how you listened to me. You're not the man they talk about. I want to help you, Chung said. That apprenticeship in Italy. I want to sponsor it. No strings. No obligations. I just want to see you reach that dream. Rossi shook her head. I can't take your money, Chung. It's not a gift. It's an investment in something beautiful. Something the world needs. He took a breath. And maybe while you're there I could come visit. Not as a benefactor, but as a man who wants to see the most beautiful city in the world with the most beautiful woman he's ever met. Rossi's breath hitched. The silence in the kitchen was heavy with possibility. Slowly she reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, smelling faintly of rosemary and citrus. The lemons in Amalfi, she whispered. I hear they're incredible. We'll go see them, Chung promised. In the living room, Amelia sat in the darkness, listening to the quiet murmur of their voices. She looked at the photograph of her late husband on the mantel and smiled. The language of her heart was no longer drying up. It was being passed on to a new generation, a blend of cultures and dreams that would create a history all its own. She closed her eyes, finally feeling at peace, finally feeling like she was truly home. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Rossi completed her culinary degree with honors, her final project a stunning tribute to the fusion of her Dominican roots and her Venetian heritage. Chung watched from the wings, providing the quiet support she needed to flourish. He moved her family into a safer building, and he made sure that the Castellano name acted as a shield for her, rather than a target. When the time came for her to leave for Italy, they stood at the airport. I'll be back, she said, her eyes wet. I have so many more stories to tell through my food. I'll be waiting, Chung replied. And I'll be there in 3 months to taste whatever you've discovered. As she walked toward the gate, Chung felt a sense of clarity he'd never known. He was still a man of two worlds, still a leader with responsibilities, but he was no longer alone. He had a bridge. He had a dream that was his own. And as the plane took off, carrying Rossi toward the canals of Venice, he knew that the tradition they had started at La Nana's kitchen was only just the beginning of a much longer, more beautiful journey. He walked out of the airport and into the New York sun, the sounds of the city no longer a roar, but a symphony. He was Chung Castellano, a man who had found his voice in the lilting Italian of a girl who dared to dream. And for the first time in his life, the future looked as bright as a Venetian morning on the water. Rossi squeezed back, her voice thick with emotion. It was my honor. Really. This is exactly why I want to be a chef. After Amelia left with strict instructions that the party would be perfetto, Chung helped Rossi clean up. She tried to handle it herself, but he waved her off with a firm yet gentle hand. You cooked for 4 hours, he said, rolling up his sleeves. The least I can do is wash the dishes. They worked side by side in the quiet of the brownstone. Chung was hyper-aware of every time their arms brushed as they reached for the same towel, every time she handed him a plate with fingers that lingered just a second too long. The kitchen, once an expansive showpiece of stainless steel and marble, felt smaller with just the two of them, warmer and infinitely more intimate. Your mother is wonderful, Rossi said, wiping down the counters with practiced circular motions. You're lucky to have her, Chung. I know. She's been through more than most people realize. My father's death was a crushing blow. Sometimes I think she's lonelier than she lets on, even when she's surrounded by family. She mentioned that she misses Venice. That she never truly wanted to leave the water behind. Yeah. Chung dried a copper pot, choosing his words with care. She came here for my father. They met when he was visiting family in Venice. She was 19, a girl with the world ahead of her, and he convinced her to marry him and move to New York. I don't think she realized then how permanent the move would be. She sacrificed her home for love. That must have been incredibly hard, Rossi whispered, her eyes fixed on the soapy water. Leaving your entire life behind at 19 for a city that doesn't speak your language. It was. She never complained, not once. But I could see it in the small things. The way she'd listen to Italian radio late at night, the way she'd light up when she found even a hint of the old country in a shop window. He set the pot down and looked at her. You give her that connection now. You have no idea what that means to her. To me. Rossi turned to face him, her brown eyes soft and searching. I'm glad I can do that for her. Everyone deserves to feel connected to the place that shaped them. They stood there in the silence, the pull between them like an invisible gravity. Chung felt the urge to close the distance, to see if she'd pull away or lean into him. But he reminded himself she was young, with a career just beginning to ignite. He felt he had no right to complicate her trajectory with the shadows of his world. I should go, Rossi said finally, breaking the spell. Early shift at the restaurant tomorrow. Let me drive you home. You don't have to, it's out of your way. It's late and it's New York. I'm driving you. She didn't argue. 20 minutes later, Chung pulled up in front of a modest apartment building in Washington Heights. Rossi unbuckled her seatbelt but lingered in the passenger seat. Thank you, she said. For today, for letting me use your kitchen, and for believing in me when you barely know me. I know enough. He turned to look at her, the streetlights casting long shadows across her face. You're special, Rossi. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. She bit her lip, and for a moment he thought she might say something that would change everything. Instead she just smiled. Good night, Chung. Good night. He watched her walk into her building and waited until the lights flickered on in her window before driving home, her name a quiet refrain in his mind. Amelia's birthday party was a triumph. 12 people crowded around Chung's dining room table, eating food that didn't just taste good, it transported them. His mother cried 3 separate times, and by the end of the night, every guest was clamoring to know where he'd found this miracle of a chef. Rossi handled the praise with a balance of genuine humility and professional confidence. Chung watched her charm his mother's friends, explaining the history of the bigoli and the nuances of the spices. She fit. That was the terrifying part. She fit into his home and his life like she'd always been the missing piece. After the guests departed, Chung found Rossi in the kitchen, finishing the final cleanup. You don't have to do that, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Force of habit. In professional kitchens you always clean as you go. She smiled, though she looked exhausted. Besides, your mother paid me more than I ever expected. The least I can do is leave this place spotless. She paid you what you're worth, which is significantly more than you charged. He picked up a towel to help her. That was incredible, Rossi. You made her year. Seeing her face when she tasted the food, that's everything I want my cooking to do. I want to bring joy, create memories, and connect people to something they thought they lost. You're going to change the world, Chung said. One meal at a time. She laughed softly. That's the dream. We'll see if reality cooperates. It will. I have no doubt about you. He set down the towel and faced her. She looked at him, her expression shifting. Why are you so nice to me? And don't say it's because of your mother. This feels like more. Chung's heart hammered against his ribs. This was the precipice. Because, he said carefully, I think you're remarkable. You see the world in a way most people don't. Anyone who gets to be part of your life is lucky. Her breath caught. Chung. I'm not asking for anything, he continued quickly. I know you have plans. I know you're going places I can't always follow. I just want you to know you're worth noticing. Rossi took a step toward him. What if I want you to ask for something? What? What if I've been hoping you would? Her voice was barely a whisper. Chung felt the weight of his reality. I'm 8 years older than you. My life is complicated. There are things about my family business that might make you want to run. I know who you are, Chung. I've always known. And I'm still standing here. Take me to dinner, she interrupted before he could argue. A real date. Somewhere that isn't La Nana's. Let me decide for myself if I want to be in your world. He knew he should protect her from himself. But looking at her, brave and hopeful, he found himself saying, Friday night. 7 o'clock. Their first date at a West Village bistro stretched into 3 hours of soul-bearing conversation. They found they shared the same bedrock values, respect for tradition and unwavering loyalty to family, and a quiet, burning ambition. Your business, Rossi said over dessert, her tone serious. How bad is it? Chung told her. He didn't sugarcoat the protection networks or the gambling, the violence that punctuated the history of the Castellano name, or the strict code they lived by. She listened with a neutral face, her intelligence sharp. I won't run, she said finally. But I can't be part of the illegal side. My career and my reputation are all I have. And if I get an opportunity in Paris or Milan, I have to take it. I would never ask you to compromise yourself, Chung promised, taking her hand. We take it one day at a time. Over the next 3 months they built a life. There were Saturday cooking sessions, dinners with carefully selected family members, and the constant, beaming presence of Amelia in the background. Their chemistry grew with a slow, deliberate heat. The first time she fell asleep on his shoulder, the first time they danced in his kitchen to old Italian records, it all led to a Tuesday in April. He kissed her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever held. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered against his lips. I'm already there, he replied. But in May the bubble burst. Rossi arrived at his house with a letter from Ristorante Krakow in Milan. A 6-month stage position. A dream came true. This is what you've worked for, Chung said, ignoring the hollow feeling in his gut. But it's 6 months away. What about us? She asked, tears blurring her vision. We'll figure it out. I won't be the reason you don't chase your dreams, Rossi. I refuse. The summer was a bittersweet blur of double shifts and stolen moments. Amelia eventually pulled Chung aside. You need to be brave, figlio mio. That girl will give up her dreams for you if you let her, and she will spend her life wondering what she missed. Tell her what the future looks like. 2 weeks before she left, Chung sat her down. I've been thinking about what will happen after Milan. You might get offers in Rome or Paris or Tokyo. That's what I'm afraid of, she whispered. What if home wasn't a place but a person? He took her hands. My business can be managed remotely. Marco is capable. If you go to Europe, I'll come with you. We figure it out together. You'd leave New York for me? In a heartbeat. And my mother? She wants to go home too. She's already looking at apartments in Venice. If I leave, she's finally free to go back without worrying about me. Rossi sobbed with relief and joy, throwing her arms around him. I love you so much. September came. At the airport, Chung watched her disappear through security, a piece of his heart going with her. The next 6 months were a marathon of video calls and 2 visits to Milan. Seeing Rossi in a Michelin kitchen, confident and masterful, made him swell with pride. But in December he saw the fatigue and the subtle homesickness. The chef offered me a permanent spot, she told him as they walked through the Galleria. But I want to go to Venice. I want to cook the food your mother loves. I want to do it with you. In March they moved. Chung delegated the New York operations to Marco and settled into a life of remote management and Venetian light. Amelia moved into a small apartment near the Rialto Bridge, her 30-year exile finally over. 1 year later, in a quiet Venetian square, Chung dropped to one knee. You showed me that home isn't a place, it's a person. Will you marry me? Yes, she laughed through her tears. 1,000 times yes. They married in a small church by the water. Amelia's toast was simple. I waited 30 years to come home. But I brought home with me, my son. And now he has found his. Rossi eventually became the executive chef of her own restaurant, La Nana, a tribute to the place they met. It became the heart of their new world. 5 years after that first meeting, they sat on Amelia's balcony, watching the sunset over the canals. Do you regret it? Rossi asked. Leaving the power of New York behind? Not for a second, Chung replied, kissing her forehead. You gave me permission to choose a life that was actually mine. From the kitchen, the scent of slow-simmered broth drifted out, the smell of tradition, of family, and of a dream that didn't have to be sacrificed for love. They walked inside together, hand in hand toward the light. This was home. If you're captivated by stories where forbidden love honors both tradition and ambition, subscribe to Stories with Mcsame for more African and Korean love stories. Which moment stole your heart? Was it when Rossi shocked everyone by speaking Italian? When Chung chose love over the empire to follow her dreams? Or Amelia's emotional return to Venice? Drop a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale of power, obsession, and betrayal. Remember, home isn't always a location, sometimes it's a person. Be brave, chase your dreams, and stay tuned for the next beautiful journey.